Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, How to Get It Just Right. Thank you so much for joining us for another hour of very insightful conversation. As we step into 2024, the new year, I really want us to start thinking about how am I going to shape my mission, my purpose in life? How do I make my organization thrive? And how do I use good influence to drive the good growth? What is good influence? What does that look like? And how can it shape my purpose to drive my influence? It's an important conversation we all need to have. And to have this conversation with me is somebody I rely on, I look up to, and I glean insight from. Paul Katz, welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks.
Thank you, and thanks very much for inviting me to the show. Looking forward to our conversation.
It's such an honor. As we start helping people understand about good influence, let's take a moment and talk about how did you land on identifying what good influence is, and then leveraging that to help other organizations make use of that to build their own progress?
Well, my journey was not linear, I'd say. So I started off in the music business and was working at Jive Records and Zomba for 20 years with artists such as Tribe Called Quest and Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake and folk like that. And I saw the power that music and entertainment has to influence, good influence in my case, their audiences. And while I'm not very handy at building houses or doing anything particularly practical, I thought, well, this is something I could learn and then bring into the nonprofit and the social initiative sector. So I started after Jive was sold in 2003. I went back to Teachers College because I was very keen on learning about education as it related to young people. And then from there, I started two direct paths. One is music. I still love music, and I oversee music for movies, for participant media, and work with Made in Memphis Entertainment for many years, until recently. And then I also started my agency, which is called Entertain Impact, and it's the use of popular culture for social change. And we've been going for nearly 20 years and loving every minute of it.
Beautiful. And when you talk about social change, it is music to my ears. And you and I met when you so graciously agreed to help us at Equip Our Kids try and figure out how do we bring about emotional intelligence, social change by using the right influences and the right platform and the right messaging. And a lot of us in our own professions, we're good at what we do, but this is an area that not many have mastered. So for not-for-profits out there, as they close out the year and step into the new year, if you were to give them 2 or 3 tips in terms of setting this up right, what would those be?
Well, that's basically just do it. A lot of nonprofits and corporations, businesses are bandwidth restricted in terms of resources, time, and people. But if you devote a little bit of attention to the area of what I call the influencer effect, the effect of a public figure on your desired audiences, then it can be very, very productive in furthering your mission, but also gaining support, revenues, and inspiring people to act. So I think just a little bit of focus on it is a good idea. And I have a book called Good Influence, How to Engage Influencers for Purpose and Profit, which is a how-to, basically, and can guide you. And then my own journey is, because of the book, has reached a stage where basically for 2 organizations a month, I'm doing a pro bono thing so that people can contact me, I don't know, through the show, I guess, or whatever. This month, we've got January, we've got 1 slot open. But when we spoke, it was on a pro bono basis for your organization, which is wonderful. So yes.
Yes, that is always amazing. And we, as those a part of the organization, are so very grateful, Paul. Now, when we talk about influences,
Mhm.
How do people find the right influencer for the right mission? Just because somebody has a following, they're not going to be the right influencer if there is no brand resonance, right? So, how do organizations go about finding that right match?
The mistake I see sometimes is people go for the influencer with the most followers, and what through research is the best step, in my opinion, and this has been proven and developed over a 20-year career so far in this space, is to look for an influencer that's got authenticity and credibility and a direct connection with your particular mission, issue, or whatever. So if we take the singer Usher, his son is diabetic. So if you have a campaign, and we did one for the American Diabetes Association called the Diabetes Dance there many years ago, where if you danced, you dared 3 people, and then you donated. And it was very, very, very successful. It spread across to 6 countries. We had tens of thousands of people involved, and over 1 billion impressions. So, and Usher was part of it, and so was Mark Cuban, whose dad had diabetes. And so it was a direct connection. It was in their hearts. Now, if we'd have gone to Usher on, I don't know, international relief, he would have been sympathetic to it, but it wasn't his cause. So research is important. And I have a website. There's 2 websites. There's one for Entertain Impact, which is the name of the agency. The other one is my author's website, paulmkatz.com. And on there, there's free tools you can download, including a research grid and a how to do it, a little bit of notes at the bottom. And I would encourage people to really do the research, because that's the foundation for everything.
That is such wonderful tips. And I was going to ask you later in the conversation where we can get people to, hang their hat and get information. This is perfect. You've made it very relevant to the conversation. So as they go and get those tools from your website and start building their strategy, they need to think about their mission. They need to think about the authentic connection. Is there anything else other than these 2 they need to keep in mind? Because you also said, don't make the mistake of going with the person with the most followers, right? That is what not to do. Is there anything they should avoid or do as they put that model in place?
I think one of the things is to allow the right amount of time. That's the first thing. We have a methodology that's been developed over these 20 years called the DREAM method. So you design your action plan. In other words, you can have a celebrity or a social media influencer join you, but unless you actually have a good campaign or initiative, it's like having a singer who's a fantastic singer, but there's not really a great song. And so you really need to develop that as the first part. Then you do the research, which is crucial, I think, and not difficult to do. It's easy to do on the internet to find the right people. Then you have to do the ask, go out and ask. And I know your podcast has a lot to do with connections. We work, speaking of connections, with Kevin Bacon's organizations and Stacey Houston, called 6degrees.org. And part of my book, in the first chapter, we looked at degrees of separation or connection. Actually, I think connection is a better word. And Facebook says that there's 5+ degrees for everybody on Facebook. So there's always going to be someone who can get to somebody, or you'll find the name of the manager or talent agent, and you'll get to the people. People don't have confidence that they can get to somebody. But if you have a credible organization, you will be able to get to the right people to make the ask. From that, there's the activation. What did your plan of marketing or advocacy campaigns have in mind? And then lastly, there's measurement, because we all want to make sure that we're doing this with some value to the organization and to the influencers that you work with. So DREAM method. Again, there's a very basic 1.5 minute video on the paulmkatz.com site that can just show you how that works.
Fabulous. I love the fact that you started with you need to give it time. A lot of times people don't realize that there is an incubation period, there is a ramping up time. You need to give it time to settle in and start attracting. And What would you say to people who are impatient, who want results now? Like they start with an influencer today, and then by next week they want everything pouring in.
Well, before we take clients on, we do kind of an assessment. And if that was the situation, we would suggest that you don't do it because it won't be successful. If I said to you, could you be in Chicago tomorrow because we have a gala or an opening, and we're going to not pay you to do it because all the people that we work with, because of this passionate connection, generally are unpaid. Social media influencers a little bit get paid, but at a very, very reduced rate. You would say, I'm so sorry. I've got my work, I've got my family, I've got other plans. And that's the same with any other human being, whether they're an influencer or not. So you're going to need some runway to do it, number one. The other thing I would say is don't ask one person, ask several. And there's value in that because availability, if somebody's shooting a TV show or they're doing a recording or there's a baseball season playoff, they're just not around. Secondly, reputation. If you have several people and one of them, although we've never had that in 20 years because research and luck, of course, but research generally. If someone goes off the rails a bit, then you've got coverage with other people. And then thirdly, audiences. So we're all looking to reach desired audiences that are hard to reach. And if you take Gen Z, for example, they're much more likely, and this is academic research from the Manchester Business School and McKinsey's, that they're much more to be influenced and do something that an influencer suggests than advertising. So if you can have different influencers for your different desired audiences, you're going to have a much better chance of getting the people that you want involved.
That is so precise and insightful, Paul. I want to dig a little deeper because right now there's the baby boomers. I mean, there is the silent generation, but they are not in that purchasing arena, right? They're the aging population.
Yeah.
But there's the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, Gen Zs, right? And then Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha
Yes.
is in school, right? So the folks who are going to influence these younger generations, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, are not going to be the same people who are going to resonate for their parents, who are millennials or Gen X's, right? So how does an organization start thinking about stratifying even the influence or the storytelling to get the message across?
I think the first thing you decide is who's your audience. So I often write out a description of somebody, so it makes it very real. And there's a huge difference between, say, Latinx from Cuba, who's in Miami, versus somebody from, say, who's living in the Los Angeles Valley, who's from Mexico. You go for different folk. We did a campaign, for example, for the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, which is part of the National Trust. It's to do with preservation and history of African Americans. It was for Nina Simone's childhood home in Tryon, North Carolina. And there, basically, we wanted to reach out to a younger professional Black audience, which they didn't usually have. And so we were very precise about who we got. In this case, our lead, and who's wonderful with philanthropy and social impact, is John Legend, because he loved Nina Simone's music and he loved her civil rights work. But we also got people like Cat Stevens, Barry Jenkins, Misty Copeland, her, the artist, and many others. And we had No Name, who's a rapper, that went viral with Save Nina's Crib. And so we got all these different audiences within geographical, economic, and other kind of demographics that we were looking for. So focus on your audience. That's the first thing. And then do the research to connect people to the audience.
Brilliant. As I'm hearing you talk, one of the questions that's coming up for me is, why do you do this? And what do you get out of it?
Well, now I'm at a stage where we're doing less campaigns. We've done them for the World Health Organization, for Rotary, for UNICEF, for small organizations, for people like Witness and Why Hunger and those kind of folk. So I do it because I just saw the power of influence. I had a couple of people who were very important to me. A friend of mine who died very young from cancer, who was a teacher, who just was very involved in charity and philanthropy, as it was called then. And so I thought I could use the entertainment business's clout and influence to help non-profits. And so I started it 20 years ago, mainly kind of making it up as we go along. Some of these terms we're using now, social impact, CSR, etc., we didn't use then. And what do I get out of it? I get out of it the pleasure of working with wonderful people. I mean, my network, if you like, has been just entirely different. So I've been to, say, Haiti with this hospital, St. Damian's, which is a pediatric hospital, who do amazing work. I've been to places I would never go to. I've had experiences I never had, but mainly I like the idea of making somebody's life a little bit better, and even improved because they now have the tools to make their own life better. So the book itself is aimed at giving nonprofits and businesses the confidence and the knowledge to do what I do. And I'm here to help them if I can in any way I can.
And that's what I love about the book, Paul. The fact that we can go back and refer, we can go back and look for, is there another way we can tweak this? This is working, but is there a way for me to enhance this? So it is truly a tool for a continuous improvement mindset, provided we are following the steps and then we are creating it in a way that it's germane to our organization, right? You can't just lift and shift and fit it, but you have to make it organically evolve.
I think so. Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I was going to say I do think that a lot of it is actually very doable, and a lot of the book is to do with stories. It's not like you must do this, you must do. It's very stories, but it does have a huge amount of economic advice to make sure that you do it in a very cost-effective way, very practical, so it's efficient, and so organizations can use it very easily. And then there's their website where they can get a lot of the tools. It is not super difficult, but you need persistence and you need time to do it, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as we are talking about how to integrate the book and the tools on the website, can you share a story about an organization that has taken your advice and your guidance and then truly leverage this the right way to make a huge impact for themselves and their social change mission?
Well, the book's only been out a few months, so it's not like we've had that line where people have done that. So I've given several tens of talks to different nonprofits to help them do this, and we're in the middle of some developments which I can't speak about because I think it's confidential. Yes. But I can talk about one. I was at Oxford University for the Skoll World Forum in April, and I gave a talk to about 30 different nonprofits, and one of them is called Airlink, which I hadn't heard of. And what Airlink do is they work with the airlines, Emirates, United, American, to supply planes to take much needed supplies over to disaster areas, which is very, very important. And they were looking to get some kind of public figures. And we had a couple of talks, maybe an hour and a half, and they just recently had Harrison Ford, who's a pilot and does lots of charity work, sometimes very quietly, join them and publicize, and they've seen visibility, etc., rise. I can also talk, if I may, about Alima, which is a kind of like Doctors Without Borders, and was birthed out of there about 13 years ago, that works in West Africa. And we did a campaign with Alima, and it was for raising money in the States primarily, but for their work in Senegal and beyond. And rather than get the Harrison Fords and the big names, because they want to make the point you don't always need the big names and they're not always the right ones for you, we worked with 10 doctors, which hit precisely the audience that they wanted to hit, and was very, very successful. They've also got a campaign at the end of this year called Breathe, which is kind of more to do with providing oxygen and COVID, and has these beautiful little clips for yoga, which I would recommend. So worth looking at Lima and Breathe.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Paul. And I am going to open this up for live audience conversation. We have a few here, so go ahead, Robin.
So I was really touched by your comment about working with children, pediatrics, working with children who are ill. So did you actually go into the hospitals, or what was your work with these children, and how did you coordinate with obviously getting the permissions of the doctors and the parents and all of that? In what way did you work with the children?
Well, thank you for the question. And I think I watched you on one of these shows. Am I right?
Probably.
Yes, I did.
I'm on almost all of them. So
yes, you were my homework to an extent. So it's very nice to meet you. So this is a hospital in Haiti. It's called St. Damien's Pediatric Hospital. It was founded by Father Rick, who was a Catholic priest, well, still is, who went over there 30 years ago, saw the mortality rate was so high, and then basically became a doctor. Started this hospital in a rickety old hotel, and now it's grown into one of the premier hospitals in Haiti for mums and their kids. And it's now run by 400. There's 400 Haitian people employed, and it's run by Haitian doctors. So I got to know about this hospital through the Elmer philanthropists, the Elmer Foundation, who had picked it up from it was a newspaper article in the UK. Elmer's not based in the UK. And so we, myself and Janet Kleinbaum from Elmer, went over there to actually do their marketing, because it's a hospital, it's not great at marketing. So we had their permission, and this is, I guess, 2013 maybe, after the earthquake, and went over there and we did all their marketing, and which proved quite successful. In fact, you can see the clip on their website. And I just became engaged with them. I'm still engaged with them. I'm actually helping them on one of the influencer campaigns on a pro bono basis. And actually, this is public knowledge, but in 2015, after a while, I took Beyonce over there, who had she was going over there with the UN and visited the hospital as well. And that had a huge impact in terms of publicity for a hospital no one knew. In terms of the question of privacy, I think was what you were alluding to. We were very careful before we did any filming of anybody, that even though the laws aren't the same as in the US or Europe, we asked permission from the mums to do it. And if it was something that was a bit distressing, and there's a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of illness and a lot of death over there, we just didn't show it. We thought, let's show the uplifting, amazing work that St. Damien's do and the positive results that they get. We didn't want to be, kind of poverty porn or whatever you want to call it these days. And Father Rick and his team are just amazing. So we've been helping and supporting them ever since. So thank you for the question.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Thanks so much.
Yes.
What amazing work, Paul, and thank you for the question, Robin. Go ahead, Marie Christine.
The work that you do, and I know it well because I know you well, but I'm wondering for the audience, the work you do has potential to be very transformative for the people on the receiving end, but also for the people who are involved with the projects. And so I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about what you have witnessed in terms of the transformation on the people receiving, but also on the people giving, and yourself.
Yes, well, good question. I mean, I want to make it clear that we are just one small component in the overall picture, and the congratulations, dibs, whatever you want to call it, must go to the people who do the work and the people who they work with. So, for example, on the polio campaign that we worked with Rotary, who are fantastic, and also UNICEF and Gates, who were the partners in there, the Gates Foundation, we did the worldwide polio campaign, and that over 5 or 6 years, it was called This Close. We're this close to any polio. All we need is you, and we're very, very close now. Although COVID put a bit of a wrench in that particular wheel, because everyone focused on COVID and not polio. So, but it's nearly gone, and so there we had about 100 different ambassadors. We would have people like the late Desmond Tutu and Jane Goodall and Itzhak Perlman, all polio survivors, to say Ziggy Marley in Africa, because him and his dad had some sway there, to issuing a fatwa in northern Nigeria to say it's okay to get your kids vaccinated. So the impact that I've seen with the health workers, who are really the brave ones, especially the ones going into the Afghan-Pakistan borders where the Taliban are, is it gave them a bit of a boost, some pride. These are what I call unexpected consequences. They were very happy that they'd been recognized by people who they respected in the main, and it gave them some more energy to do the work. For example, Rotary since 87, I think, around there anyway, had been working on this, and they were getting tired. And that campaign with this closed to help them raise $75 million from membership, and I think the campaign with the Gates Foundation raised about $5 billion towards polio over its period. And so for the people on the ground, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but from my experience, I think if you know your baby is safe and your family are cool with it, because it's, say, for example, in India, where we use Bollywood actors, it's not just the mum, it's the husband in the village, because you have to be very aware of the cultural elements. If they feel safe and there's not, instead of 400,000 children either dying or being crippled, you now have 30 in the world, and I'm just using that as a number. I think it was 12 at one point. That's amazing, and for me, I'm happy that I have the ability to use something that people wouldn't normally think of, i.e., popular culture. So there's that, and also the influencers themselves. They could do a lot of other things with their time. They don't get paid. And so Archie Punjabi, who's based in the UK, who's an actor, and a really good actor actually, went to India. So they took a week out and they went to India, and they made a big difference. So I think lots of different levels of connectedness, and we're all connected in my view. And there's a lot of validity for a lot of people. Thanks for the question.
Thank you for the question, Marie-Christie. And what a profound way to impact the whole system, right? And create that holistic effect. And we are seeing a lot of times science is no longer making the connection for people, and it's going to take trusted influences to convince people to do something. So as the paradigms around us shift and people are having less and less trust in the system, what closing advice do you have for organizations and people who are working in it to start thinking of solutions a little differently to align with the changing times?
Wow, that is a very big question, and I'm not sure I'm able to answer it in a short period of time. But I do think this idea of a personal connection to people, to treat people as not the other, but have empathy, is really, really important. And look for it's old-fashioned in a way, but the win-win, I think, is really, really important. I have a Buddhist practice, and in Buddhism they say that you've been born lots and lots of times, and that everybody at one time was your mother. So trying to think of people you really don't like, but being empathetic to them is a kind of an interesting way. But generally, what I would say from a practical perspective for businesses and nonprofits, as you go into 2024, is really to think of relationship mapping. What's your goal? Who's your audiences? Who can you work with and help just as much as they may help you to really deal with this? And in the influencer space, if I somebody who's followed Taylor Swift because she's the Time Person of the Year for many, many years, and if Taylor Swift says something, I'm going to really give it some credence and may follow it. Whereas if it's somebody I don't really respect or don't really know, then I'm going to have much less enthusiasm towards their point of view. So I think that research component that I talked about earlier is very important. So make sure that you have the right connections.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paul, for giving your thoughts, your insights, giving people the tools through your website, through your book. I am personally energized talking to you, And I know we at Equip Our Kids are going to be leaning into you and continuing to get your advice as we build our campaigns out. So to the audience out there, take a moment and do the relationship mapping, do the thinking and the strategic connection between your mission and your audience, and who is going to be the trusted spokesperson to get that message across to truly transform your social change into something actionable. Tie your call to action, use the dream method Paul has shared with us, and go and build that change because the time is right. We are the change we're waiting for, but we can't do it on our own. We need the network and community around us. So reach out. If you have any questions, talk to Paul, talk to your peer groups, and make it happen, because a win-win partnership can only happen when we bring more than one person to the table.